Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Will I see you tomorrow, Javier? Javier looked at the pretty girl in front of him. Why are these rich, stupid girls so stupid? There's nothing to talk to her about, let alone discuss something more serious than the weather in the Maldives this year. She's standing there fluttering her eyelashes as if she wants to hypnotize him. Only it won't work. Javier doesn't fall for it anymore. He's not impressed by artificial dolls, silly rich worthless heiresses. All they think about is money, profit, a marriage of convenience, and nothing else. Javier was the heir of a well-known dentist who had long since become a millionaire. His father, Daniel Delgado, earned his fortune through hard work and determination. He sacrificed everything to provide for himself and his family for the rest of his life. He even sacrificed his marriage. Long ago, when he was not so rich, he married Javier's mother Elena. She was a beautiful girl, but very cruel and free-spirited. She had given birth to a son and then a daughter, and a few years later she left Daniel alone with the children and simply left in an unknown direction. Daniel didn't try to find her. Well, now that Elena had made that decision, there was nothing he could do. He was raising the children alone, and a few years later he received a letter that his wife had died. It turned out that she lived a wild life, moved abroad, danced in pubs and bars there, and hung out with different personalities with the dubious reputations. And then something bad happened. She was involved in some kind of a fight where she was shot and died. That was the end of the story. A short but tumultuous life that ended in such a ridiculous way. Daniel gave his children the best of everything. He wanted his son to carry on his work, and Javier didn't mind. After graduating from medical college, he began to work with his father, becoming his deputy. Ursula also graduated from medical college but didn't work yet. She wanted to do something else, something more interesting to her, instead of devoting her life to medicine. Daniel didn't mind. He was giving his daughter absolute freedom. She still enjoyed life and spent her time the way she liked, and she hasn't thought about the future yet. It wasn't just the sad story of his parents that had left its mark on Javier's life. In high school, he enjoyed his social status and hung out with the prettiest and richest girls. After graduation, his appetite grew immensely. He changed girls like socks, and each new girl was prettier than the previous one. And then he met Bella. Isabella was the daughter of a wealthy businessman who owned a chain of restaurants. The girl was very beautiful, and Javier immediately fell in love with her. To his surprise and delight, Bella was not just beautiful, but also intelligent, and she conquered Javier, who had never yet met intelligent and beautiful girls among the rich heiresses. They had been dating for about a year. Javier had already decided that he was going to marry this beautiful girl, but he was sorely disappointed. He found Bella in bed with another, heavily muscled man. She had a lot of fun with that man while Javier was away for an internship. He arrived a couple of days earlier without warning his beloved, wanting to surprise her. Bella was calm when she told him, "Did you think I would wait for you forever while you were busy studying?" "No, darling. I want you to be busy with me. I don't really care about your work. If you've chosen what's best for you, good luck, but I won't be there for you. I love myself too much to be satisfied with second place in your life because your work will always come first. I should come first, not your profession." She was saying it, covering herself with a silk sheet. Her naked shoulders shuddered impatiently as she expressed her point of view to her man. Meanwhile, her lover, who was entertaining her while Javier was away, was waiting for her in the bedroom. The man didn't even make a scandal, his heart was just petrified. Looking at his beloved, he swore that no girl could take advantage of him again, he would never let anyone take advantage of him, and he would be the only one to take advantage of everyone. Since that time, Javier trusted no one. He had many women, young and older, married and single, but none of them could touch his heart. He seduced, charmed, used, and took advantage of them without thinking that he could hurt anyone. "Javier, can you hear me?" Javier came to his senses and looked at Yvette. His father wanted him to meet her so badly. So he agreed with his father, but he knew from the beginning that nothing good would come of this venture, and he wasn't wrong. He was absolutely not attracted to Yvette in any sense, even though she was trying to impress him by showing off her large and most likely artificial breasts in that gorgeous dress. Yes, let's meet again, but not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. Tomorrow I can't, I have to work late, the man replied after a while. Yvette smiled, showing her unnaturally white teeth, and blinked her eyes funny. Javier could barely keep from laughing. The next day Javier drove to work at the clinic. Every time he drove up to this beautiful and modern building, he was proud to think that his father had achieved incredible things by himself. Daniel Delgado was a model for his son. He had 3 of the biggest and best clinics in the city. Yes, the treatment at these clinics was not cheap, but the quality of the services provided was so high that people from other cities and even from other countries came to them. Daniel had many patients who came from other cities specifically to him for treatment, prosthetics, and other services. The word of mouth was working. Someone recommended him to someone, told a friend or a relative. A lot of patients living abroad often brought their friends and relatives. Javier worked at 2 clinics. Daniel spent most of his time at the 3rd clinic, sometimes visiting the other clinics on business, but not very often. Sitting in the car, Javier stared at the building for a long time, and then he was disturbed by the phone call. He looked at the cell phone screen and saw that it was his assistant, Nurse Maribel. "Hello, Maribel, what happened?" "Javier, you're still not here. Your first patient is already sitting here, waiting for you. I don't think she's in the mood. Just make sure she doesn't make any noise if you're late." "What should I tell her?" Maribel's voice was slightly agitated. Javier smiled. "Maribel, go to her, smile, and tell her the doctor will be there in 30 seconds. I'm already here. Please make me a coffee while I change." "Okay, Javier." An hour later his first patient left in great spirits. All patients left Javier in high spirits, especially females. Javier knew how to charm them and he used his charms without hesitation. Now he had a free hour. His next patient had canceled an appointment because his wife was hospitalized. Javier called Maribel. "Maribel, do I have any appointments for tomorrow evening? Because I have an important meeting. I made a promise, and promises have to be kept." "I'll check with Paula now." Javier shook his head. "No, don't. I'll go see her myself." Javier left the office and headed toward the receptionist's desk. Paula, seeing him, smiled radiantly. "Paula, dear, am I free tomorrow night?" Paula's smile became even wider. "Yes, Javier Delgado, you don't have any appointments for tomorrow evening. You have a patient at 12 o'clock, and that's it." "Great, I'm glad," Javier answered smiling. This girl was beautiful and intelligent, but she was so rapacious that sometimes Javier felt as if she looked at people, judging solely the status of their wallet, not their looks or character. As a man, he was repulsed by this, but as a human being he admired such purposefulness and self-centeredness. Paula said something to him, but he hardly listened to her. He detected some movement to his left, and his keen, attentive gaze fixed on its source. The bathroom door opened, and a janitor stepped out. Except it wasn't their employee, it was a complete stranger. Javier had never seen her before. The girl was very skinny. Her hair, braided into a tight braid, was dark, almost black. She was wearing a green medical suit, the uniform all the staff wore in their clinic. So, she worked for them, only Javier didn't know her. And then the girl turned toward him. For a second, Javier's breath was taken away. She was incredibly beautiful. He could have bet she hadn't had any plastic surgery. She had naturally plump lips, beautifully curved dark eyebrows, and long eyelashes. But her eyes were simply irresistible. Brown, almost black, they looked straight to the soul. But her eyes didn't express anything. Maybe she was just silly, but it seemed to Javier that she was just controlling herself, trying to react to everything in cold blood. A patient walked into the clinic with a baby, a little girl. When the janitor saw the child, the corners of her lips quivered and her eyes warmed. But she immediately pulled herself together and turned away, went back into the restroom, closing the door behind her. "Who is that?" Javier asked Paula. The receptionist frowned, glancing through a register book, and then said, "It's probably Dr. Benito Carrasco's patient. Only she's early, the doctor's not at work yet." "Who are you talking about?" Javier asked with bewilderment. Paula looked at him with surprise. "About the patient with the baby." "And who are you talking about?" Javier waved his hand. "No, the cleaning girl." "Who's that?" And he nodded toward the restroom. "Oh, she's new, she's only been working for 3 days. Your father sent Julie, she was recruiting. Didn't you see her?" Javier shrugged. "I don't usually keep track of recruiting, that's Julie's job." The administrator of his father often came to the clinic with assignments from the boss. Julie had worked at the company for many years, and she could solve any problem. Daniel Delgado highly appreciated her, and he even paid her an increased salary, which by no means corresponded to the salary of an ordinary administrator. The bathroom door opened again. The cleaning lady came out with 2 buckets and a mop. Carefully closing the door, she walked over to the receptionist's desk. "I did everything you said. Should I wash the toilet again at the end of the day or tomorrow?" the cleaning lady asked. Paula snarled angrily at the janitor, trying to show Javier that she was diligently performing her duties and keeping the clinic in order. "Are you out of your mind? Patients shouldn't see you here, only as a last resort if they need to clean up vomit or something. Why are you coming to me? All issues should be resolved over the phone. I told you there's a phone in the back. You can just call me. Don't show us here during the working day, only call. Yesterday I told you you should check the restroom every hour, wash it, and disinfect it." "I understood everything, I'm sorry, it won't happen again." The girl turned pale, but the expression on her face did not change, it was absolutely calm. She remained calm, in spite of the fact that Paula scolded her in front of the chief. Javier looked at the girl. Intuitively, he sensed waves of anger coming from the cleaning lady. This surprised him very much because her face was calm and expressed only obedience. Such iron restraint was certainly commendable. "Do you even know how to say hello? The director, Javier Delgado, is standing in front of you, and this is how you behave." The janitor slowly turned around, and for a second her eyes met Javier's. Javier felt strange, but the cleaning lady immediately lowered her gaze to the floor, so he didn't understand anything. "Excuse me." "Good morning," she greeted him. "Go to work," Paula said sternly. The cleaning lady immediately left. Javier, looking at her straight back, asked the receptionist, "What's her name?" "The cleaning lady?" Ángeles, I think." "Yes, Ángeles." Paula wanted to say something else, but then the clinic phone rang. She picked up the phone and said hello politely. "Ángeles," Javier whispered softly, thoughtfully. He treated all the patients, and at the end of the day, he suddenly thought of the cleaning lady. He told his assistant to get her to clean the office. "I'll get Helena now," Maribel replied. "No, call the new girl, Ángeles." Maribel looked at her boss in surprise, but said nothing. A couple of minutes later, Ángeles walked into the office. She glanced at Javier and immediately turned her gaze away. "Ángeles, please clean up my office." The girl raised her eyebrows in surprise. "But Helena cleans the offices, I think. From now on you will always clean my office. I will tell Paula about it, don't worry. Work, I'll go out, I won't be in the way." Javier left the office, and Ángeles looked after him with surprise. After a couple of minutes, she came to her senses and got to work. Javier told Paula that Ángeles would now be cleaning his office. The receptionist said nothing at first, but her face showed confusion. She had never criticized the chief or discussed his actions or orders, but now the expression on his face gave her something to think about. Paula coughed and answered, "This girl is still too inexperienced. She is not qualified enough for this job. It's too early to let her work in the offices. She might drop something or mess it up. It's better if Helena cleans your office for now. Maybe in a couple of months, Ángeles will be able to do such responsible work. I suggest we leave it as it is for now." Javier changed his face and said sternly, "I didn't know you were an expert in cleaning, Paula. Maybe I should appoint you to this responsible position. I'm sure you'll do it right. What you said made me doubt whether you were in the right position. Maybe I should assign you to the position of a janitor." Paula blushed. The chief had never spoken to her that way before. He had always been very friendly and even flirted with her a few times, and now he was spitting in her face. Because of some janitor. "I'm sorry I doubted your actions. It won't happen again. I'll do as you say. I'll tell Helena she won't be cleaning your office anymore. Everything will be done as you say." Javier's face did not change. He gave Paula the cold look, but said in a more friendly way, "Yes, tell her and make a schedule for them, please. From now on all the cleaning ladies will have to take turns cleaning the toilets. I think it's fair. In our clinic we treat all employees equally, don't we?" Paula turned pale. Never before had a boss interfered in the organization of the junior staff. Usually, Paula and Julie did whatever they saw fit. The chief was fine with that. What had changed now? Paula smiled sweetly, even though a hurricane was raging inside her. "Whatever you say, Javier Delgado." Javier left, and Paula felt a grudge against Ángeles. Javier has been acting strangely since this snake came in. It seems that she is the one to blame for the chief starting to change things around here. "Well, okay, I'll show you who's in charge here, you little monster," Paula whispered quietly, thinking of Ángeles. From that day on, the clinic's routine changed a little. Now all the janitors took turns keeping the toilets clean. No one liked that. But Paula explained that after the new employee came, the boss had decided that this would always be the case. She told them secretly that it was probably Ángeles' fault that Javier had changed the routine, but warned everyone that the girl was probably his girlfriend, and therefore it was not a good idea to fight with her. However, they could easily boycott her. Who would blame them for anything serious if they simply ignored Ángeles? No one. It's up to them who they communicate with and who they don't. She is going to regret she came here. Now Ángeles cleaned Javier's office every day. She didn't understand why there was such a change. They took turns cleaning the toilets. But what frightened her the most was that everyone stopped communicating with her, speaking to her only about work, as if she had committed some terrible crime. She couldn't understand what was going on, but Ángeles was used to considering herself an outcast, so over time she just stopped paying attention to it. Especially there was something surprising that diverted her attention, Javier Delgado. Ángeles noticed that the chief's attitude toward her was a little strange. He was too polite, smiling a lot. She saw the way he looked at her as she did her job. She felt that he didn't leave the office on purpose to watch her. At first, it worried and even frightened her, but then she got used to it. They began exchanging casual phrases, and he even made her laugh. Over time, Ángeles began to notice that his gaze had changed. She sensed danger and realized that she needed to stay away from Javier. He started giving her occasional treats, a chocolate bar, then a box of chocolates, then a can of coffee or tea. Each time it was something new. Ángeles always refused, but he made her take all his presents. Javier did not understand what was happening to him. Ángeles made him feel strange feelings. He resisted them, but it was to no avail. He was drawn to this girl. He always wanted to do something nice for her, to make her sad eyes sparkle with joy. He could see that she was frightened by his attention, but every time he noticed the spark of joy in her eyes, it warmed his soul. The ice in his heart gradually began to melt. "Rogelio, let's go to the clinic. I want to see my brother. I haven't seen him in a long time." "Okay, Ursula Delgado, The driver started the car and drove slowly away. Ursula absently ran her fingers through her hair, looking out the window. She had been bored lately. She still hadn't decided what she wanted to do in life. And she also wanted to talk to Javier. Maybe he could give her some advice. When she arrived at the clinic, the first thing Ursula did was go to the receptionist's desk. "Paula, hi, dear." Seeing the chief's daughter, Paula glowed. They were on good terms. Ursula was an example to Paula. This was what she wanted to be: successful, free, rich, and doesn't have to work hard. Only to take care of herself, to have fun, to go out with friends, to date rich men who would shower her with gifts, flowers, and diamonds just because she graced them with her attention. "Ursula Delgado, how nice to see you. It's been a long time since you've been here. I missed you terribly." Ursula smiled. "Honestly, so have I. I had some things to do, but nothing serious. Just another suitor was taking up all my time, and then I got tired of him and got rid of him. Now I'm a single bird again." Paula looked at the girl with envy. How lucky she is to do only what she wants. "Is my brother in his office? Is he working or is he off today?" Paula grinned. "Not working, but not available." "What does that mean?" Ursula frowned. Paula looked around. No one was there. She leaned over to Ursula. Now she was going to tell the chief's daughter everything. Ángeles will be in trouble. Paula would certainly do her best. This means that Javier has a new hobby, so to speak. Every day after work he spends his time with our janitor. She's new here, but she's managed to charm our deeply respected Javier Delgado almost from day one. And she did it so skillfully that I do not doubt that she is a true professional. I don't know how she does it. I'm a decent, honest, and modest girl, and I don't want to know about her methods. But the fact that she's lying to your brother and taking advantage of his attitude is clear to anyone. He just won't let go of her. I don't even want to guess what's going to happen next. If this sly devil is planning something serious, you've got to be careful. That's why I'm telling you all about it. Forewarned is forearmed." Ursula frowned more and more as Paula talked about the details of what was going on in the clinic. Fortunately, she arrived just in time. Nothing fatal had happened yet. But some precautions had to be taken. Otherwise, this is a nightmare. A penniless janitor wants to seduce her brother. That will never happen. If her father can't control anything, because he has no time, Ursula will take it into her hands. She has plenty of time. She will not tolerate any snake getting into their society. Only they have the right to decide who is worthy and who is not worthy to join their family. "What's her name?" Ursula asked, tapping the tabletop with her fingernails. "Her name is Ángeles. Just please, Ursula, don't tell Javier that I told you anything. I mean, well, he will be furious. And I need a job." Ursula looked in the direction of her brother's office and replied, "I never reveal my sources. No one will fire you, that's out of the question. Such an employee is hard to replace." "Okay, thank you, Paula. You were very smart to tell me everything. I'm going to my brother's office. See you later." Ursula sighed and slowly made her way to Javier's office, thinking about what Paula had told her. When she opened the door, the first thing she noticed was that the janitor felt comfortable and relaxed in the company of her brother. Javier was smiling and telling her something, while she laughed at his joke. In between, Javier stroked the cleaner on the shoulder, and the girl reacted calmly. Yes, she was beautiful, that could not be denied, but certainly, Ursula knew what was behind that beauty, and she was going to tell that her stupid brother, who was caught in the net of this cunning creature. He told her so many times that he would never put beauty first again. He had disappointed so many girls, believing that wealth and beauty could not go hand in hand with intelligence, but only with hypocrisy and meanness. He claimed that no girl could trick him. And here we go, this beggar managed to win his trust so easily. It's all right, Ursula will take care of it now. When the couple noticed that they were not alone in the office, the situation changed dramatically. Ángeles immediately stepped away from Javier and blushed. Javier became serious, but when he saw his sister, he smiled. "Ah, sister, good to see you. What brings you here, my dear? Why didn't you call?" Ursula went into the office and sat in an armchair, putting her leg over her leg. She deliberately looked only at Ángeles, noting with satisfaction that she was embarrassed by her gaze. "So, I was just passing by, thought I'd stop by. Long time no see, Javier. I see you're doing great, I'm very happy." Javier smirked, glancing sideways at the janitor. "Yeah, I can't complain, I'm doing fine. What about you?" Ursula kept looking at Ángeles. "Yes, she is really beautiful. We need to take action, otherwise, it will be too late." "I'm doing fine." Ursula had already forgotten that she wanted to talk to her brother about her life. She suddenly felt very important and needed. She realized that her brother's fate was now in her hands, and she must do everything she could to prevent any trouble that might come to their family. "Will you wait for me in the staff room? I still have some things to do, some chores to finish," Javier responded. Ursula noticed that the janitor was too slow in dusting. Either she wanted to postpone her time of leaving, or she was just sloppy and lazy. Looking at her brother, Ursula realized what chores he was talking about. He wanted to talk to the janitor some more. Then Ursula said, "I need to talk to you. It's very urgent and very important." Ursula looked at the janitor with a disdainful look and said with her usual arrogance, "Get out of here, you can finish when we leave. Quickly." Javier didn't have time to say anything before Ángeles ran out of the office. Javier frowned and folded his arms across his chest. "Ursula, why are you so rude? It is not acceptable. Why are you embarrassing me in front of the staff?" "You are embarrassing yourself, Javier. How do you behave?" Ursula shouted at him. Javier raised an eyebrow, letting his sister know that she was speaking inappropriately to him. Ursula pulled herself together. She stood up and walked over to her brother, and then said quietly, "Javier, my beloved brother, don't you understand what is going on here?" "What are you talking about, Ursula?" His sister shook her head reproachfully. "I'm talking about that girl, the janitor." Javier stopped frowning and smiled. He sighed and answered his sister affectionately, "Sis, I know how this looks, but don't you worry, it's okay. Can't you see that I'm happy? I really am. I like this girl a lot. It's very different from what it used to be. I'm sure of it. She's not like everyone else, she's like a dream. I thought there was no such woman, but I was wrong. I'm incredibly glad I was wrong." Ursula looked at her brother frightened. "Javier, are you out of your mind? That girl is a janitor. What could possibly attract you to her? She's a poor girl from a lower class. I know what people of that sort do. She looks kind and nice and naive, but she's not. You'll find that out in the end, when it's too late. She's trying to seduce you, little brother, and I see she's very good at it. You're already caught in her trap. Get rid of her before it's too late. A little more time, and you'll do whatever she wants you to do. She just wants you to marry her. Have you slept with her yet? Did you use condoms? Why am I asking, though? It's no use. Even if you did, she'll find a way to get pregnant, and there's nothing you can do. After that, you'll have to marry her. Brother, you're a fool. I didn't expect that from you. I thought you were smart and responsible, and that I was the only one in this family who was a crazy slacker who didn't know what I wanted. But it turns out that's not the case. You've outdone me." Ursula groaned and sat down again, covering her face with her hands. Javier stared at his sister for a moment, and then sat down beside her, taking her hand in his palms. "Ursula, I didn't sleep with her. You have to understand, this is completely different. I told you, I fell in love with her. I'll be honest, I offered her to go out with me, but she refused," he answered softly and calmly. "It's a tactic. She's just tying you down, showing you that she's supposedly so modest and shy." Javier shook his head. "No, darling, you're wrong. She's really a wonderful girl, the most wonderful girl I've ever met, I'm sure. I'm going to keep communicating with her. I'm serious about it. Please, try to understand me." Ursula whispered angrily. "She's a janitor, a penniless, sly snake, and you'll realize it, but it'll be too late. Then no one will be able to help you. You'll get burned very badly, little brother, and you'll be the only one to blame." Javier sighed and let go of his sister's hand. "I can't convince you. Let everyone stick to their opinions for now." "Well, let's see what you say when you realize you were wrong. Maybe you'll have to apologize." "No way. That's not going to happen." "You will apologize," his sister whispered. When Ursula left the office, Javier stared at the door for a long time. Why is everyone so eager to educate him? Why can't he decide for himself what to do and how to act? Ursula got in the car and told the driver irritably, "Rogelio, quickly go to my father's office, very quickly. I urgently need to see him." Rogelio, seeing the anger on the face of his boss, said nothing. The car drove off so fast that there was a screech of tires. Julie peeked into Daniel's office. "Daniel Delgado, your daughter is here. I said you would be available in 20 minutes, but she says it was very urgent." Daniel, not taking his eyes off his patient, replied, "Let her wait, I'll finish in a few minutes." Ursula tapped her foot impatiently on the floor, waiting for her father. Those couple of minutes seemed like an eternity to her. When he entered their private family lounge, she immediately began talking very quickly. "Daddy, I have to tell you something very important. Javier may be getting into trouble, and we have to help him." Daniel frowned, but answered calmly, "I'm listening to you, Ursula. You have to take action, it's your responsibility, otherwise, Javier will make such a mess that we will have to deal with it for a long time." Paula. Daniel. A couple of days later, the father arrived at the clinic to see his son. When Paula saw the chief, she perked up. She had an instinct for disputes. She knew from Daniel's face that it was serious, but the chief didn't tell her anything. He went straight to his son's office. Javier had just finished his work. The nurse was cleaning the desk, and Javier was filling out the patient's medical records. In 10 minutes he was going to call the janitor. He hadn't seen her today and missed her very much. When he saw his father, Javier was surprised. "Dad? Hi. Is something wrong?" Daniel smiled at his son in a friendly way. "No, son, everything is fine. I have something important to tell you. There's a big conference coming up in Europe. I've attended it a couple of times, and now I want you to go instead of me. It's time for you to make your name known. You're an excellent professional. You have to go to that conference because it is very important for your future career. Someday you will have to take over my responsibilities as well." "All right, Daniel Delgado, whatever you say. I'm ready to do my duties as a son," Javier jokingly said and smiled. "How long is this conference?" "Hopefully no more than 2 days." Daniel looked intently at his son. "No, Javier, it's a longer trip. You'll be there for a week. If there are patients who need urgent treatment, inform Julie. If there are any that can be canceled or rescheduled, have Paula take care of it. The plane tickets are already booked. You leave tomorrow at 11 a.m. I am sorry to tell you so late, but there was an unfortunate organizational error. They did not inform us about the conference in advance. It's good that at least they called today. Anyway, contact Julie. She will tell you all the details, and Gustavo will bring everything you need." Javier frowned. Why was it so urgent? It all seemed so unusual. His father always knew everything in advance, and now he found out about the conference at the last minute. But Javier was not used to questioning his father. He respected him very much. Javier had always listened to his father since childhood, and he listened to him even as an adult. If his father asked for something, Javier never refused, even if he did not like something. Those were his principles and rules. "Okay, Dad, I'm going home now to pack. I hope it will be a good and productive trip." Javier continued to fill in the electronic data in his laptop, and Daniel walked out of his son's office and, standing at the door, whispered, "I'm sure it's going to be a very productive trip. It can't be otherwise." He stood there for a couple of seconds and then headed over to Paula to ask her for the file of the janitor Ángeles. 8 days later, Javier returned from the conference. He was a little tired. The endless lines of people speaking different languages made Javier tired. Even though he knew English perfectly, he lived in a Spanish-speaking country, and he was not used to speaking and listening in English all the time. By the end of the trip, he was even thinking in English. He thought the trip was very useful to him. After all, he needed to go abroad sometimes so he wouldn't lose his skills. Perhaps he would come here soon with Ángeles, well, when he convinced her that they should be together. For the next 8 days, Javier thought about her all the time and missed her a lot. He also realized that he had fallen in love with this girl, even though there had been no intimacy between them. It was so strange and exciting. Javier felt that he had found his mate, the one he needed, and all he could think about was how to make Ángeles believe it. To believe that he was serious about her. He felt she liked him, but he could see how afraid she was of getting close to him. She didn't believe he had feelings for her, not just attraction. Maybe at first, it was, but then things changed. Javier just wanted to be with her. He didn't care that this girl was penniless, that she was just a janitor, that people in his circle would judge him, or what his sisters said about the girl. He didn't care about any of it, because he knew that none of it mattered. All that mattered to him was that he loved her and he wanted her to be with him. When Javier arrived home, he got an unpleasant surprise. He went to work the next day. "Welcome back, Javier Delgado. You're early today. You have your first patient scheduled for 9 in the morning, and it's only 8 o'clock. The look on Paula's face was strange as she greeted him, but Javier paid no attention to it. He wanted to see Ángeles too much. He wanted to spend that extra hour with her. He didn't care what Paula thought. He had too much to say to Ángeles. He needed to tell everything. She has to believe him and agree with him. "Send Ángeles to my office," Javier said, and headed for his office. But he was stopped by Paula's solemn voice. "Excuse me, Javier, but Ángeles no longer works here." Javier stood still. He turned around slowly. Paula saw his pale, shocked face and felt an inner jubilation. "What does it mean? What do you mean by no longer works here? Why? Did something happen to her?" Paula smiled sweetly and answered, enunciating each word, "She was fired a week ago." Javier walked swiftly to the receptionist's desk, walked around it, leaned toward Paula, and asked menacingly, "Who fired her?" Paula was slightly frightened by this pressure and muttered in shock, "Your father." She was fired by Daniel Delgado. Javier stared at Paula for about a minute. She swallowed a lump in her throat but was afraid to say anything more. Finally, Javier realized what had really happened. "Ursula, devil." He muttered and slammed his fist down on the table with all his might. Paula shrieked and shrank back, her eyes widened, and Javier turned and headed for the exit. When Paula realized that he was leaving, she shouted, "Javier Delgado, you have a patient at 9 o'clock. I'm leaving, I have an urgent case. Do whatever you want. Make it up, that's part of your job." He shouted as he went outside. Soon, Javier was at his father's office. Daniel had a patient sitting in his chair, but Javier paid no attention. "I need to talk to you right away, Dad." "Son, you're back already? Great. But I'm busy right now. Wait for me in the staff room. I'll be there as soon as I finish." "No, I need to talk to you right now, it can't wait." Daniel looked at his son intently and answered sternly, "Wait for me in the staff room, I'll finish in a half an hour." Javier wanted to add something else, but he didn't say anything. He left the office and slammed the door so that the patient in the chair shuddered. While Javier waited in the staff room for his father, he thought of 1,000 phrases he wanted to tell him. 20 minutes later, Daniel came in. He quietly closed the door and said to his son, "You are my son, but you have no right to act like this. Think about what you're doing. You're a grown man. You break into my office, scare the patient, and embarrass me. What the hell are you doing? Javier yelled, "How dare you defy Ángeles? Was it Ursula who told you all sorts of nasty things about her?" "I'm sure it was her. I'm sure she did it." Daniel sat down on the sofa and looked at his son. "What do you want to hear from me?" "The truth. I want to hear the truth." Daniel sighed and answered, "The truth? Do you want to hear the truth? Well, you will. Yes, it was Ursula who told me about the janitor. And she did the right thing. I'm your father, and you have no right to embarrass me and our whole family. You almost hooked up with that girl. She's not right for you. I won't have people from lower society in our family. I fired her, and you will never see her again." Javier moved closer to his father. He was shaking with anger, his fists clenched and unclenched with force. If it wasn't his father, he would have punched the man in the face right now. "How dare you to interfere in my life? I had feelings for this girl. I love her. I have serious intentions for her. You can't change that." "Javier, don't be silly. This girl was so sly that she almost deceived you. You almost got yourself in trouble. I am very glad that Ursula told me everything in time, and I was able to prevent trouble. And there's nothing more to talk about." Javier looked at his father and could not believe that this man had raised him. "Why are you doing this to me? I love this girl, do you understand? And you're ruining my life. I'm an adult, I am capable of making my own decisions. No one has the right to interfere in my life, neither you, nor Ursula. You are my son. I will interfere in your life as long as you make gross mistakes. I introduced you to a beautiful girl. Yvette belongs to a good family, she's the perfect match for you. So you should be in love with her. And this beggar is not right for you. She only has one thing on her mind. She wants to get into our family. And you got caught in her trap." It was only now that Javier realized why his father had sent him to that conference. He just wanted to keep Javier away. He fired Ángeles while Javier was away so that he couldn't do anything. Good plan. Javier didn't suspect anything. Ursula and his father arranged and did their dirty work behind his back, and it was Javier and that poor girl who suffered. Javier is not going to leave it as it is. He has to fix it. Yes, he has to go against his father, so that's the way it has to be. He has to prove that he is an adult, independent, and can make his own decisions. No one has the right to dictate how he should live his life. You made a big mistake, Daddy, and I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm gonna fix it. If I have to cut off communication with my family, I will. I love this girl, and I want to be with her. You can't change that, and you can't stop me, Javier said. Daniel smirked and answered, "We'll see. You'll understand, we did it all for you. When the time comes, I won't even ask for an apology. All I need is that you just admit I was right." Javier walked right up to his father and said, "That will never happen, because I know that I am right." He walked away. Daniel Delgado sat thinking for another 5 minutes, staring at the door. He was sure he had done the right thing, but his son understood nothing. Nothing. He would understand when the time comes. Javier returned to the clinic and began to question Paula menacingly. "If you don't tell me where Ángeles lives, I don't know what I'll do to you." I don't know. I'm sorry, Javier Delgado. You're lying. I know you're lying. I beg you, you have to tell me where she lives. I won't tell anyone that you told me. Neither my father nor anyone else will find out. I'll find out where she lives anyway, only it'll take me a little longer if you don't tell me. I really don't know. Her file was removed by Daniel Delgado. I only remember the name of the village, I don't remember the address. I can tell you the name of the village, but that's it. Well, it's better than nothing. Javier thanked Paula. He packed and left. He left the clinic, he left the patients, and he left his family. Daniel was frantic. Julie nervously rescheduled all the patients Javier had left for other doctors. No one understood anything. Panic reigned in all three clinics. Rumors that Javier Delgado had quit his job and left had spread just hours after his leaving. But no one knew the truth, no one knew what had really happened. Ursula called her brother, but he didn't pick up the phone. She wanted to talk to him, to explain everything, but then she realized that Javier had blocked her number. He no longer wanted to communicate with the sister who had betrayed him. Ursula was distraught. Had Ángeles bewitched her brother? Javier found the village where Ángeles lived. The only thing left to do was to find her address. The village was not very big, and Javier decided to just go from house to house, trying to find the girl. So he did. People looked at him like he was crazy. No one understood why a well-dressed man, who looked very decent and educated, was looking for a country girl. Javier was lucky. It didn't take him long to find Ángeles. He came to the house where the girl's old friend lived, and she told him the correct address. She wanted to add something else, but Javier was no longer listening. He quickly got in his car, typed the address into his navigator, and drove off. 10 minutes later he was there. And he had found her. Found his beloved. The house was old enough and definitely needed repairs. The yard was also neglected. Javier looked around, seeing if there was a dog in the yard that might attack him, but he didn't see anyone. Then he opened the gate and entered the yard. There were chickens running around. Javier almost stepped on one of them as it tried to slip under his feet. He walked up to the house and took a deep breath, then knocked on the door. There was silence for a minute, and then footsteps were heard. Ángeles opened the door. When she saw Javier, her eyes opened wide. Javier? Javier Delgado, what are you doing here? Ángeles, I was looking for you. I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't know. Please believe me, I didn't know. Javier Delgado, you can't be here, you have to leave now. I'll be in big trouble if anyone finds out you were here. I'm not leaving until I talk to you. Ángeles spoke miserably. Please, I beg you, go away, I'm already in trouble because of you. If your father finds out that you were here, I don't want any trouble, do you understand? I have enough problems already. Ángeles, listen to me, please. I need to explain everything to you. Everything has already been explained to me, in detail, Ángeles said doomfully. Judging by your tone, they didn't tell you the truth. What else is there to explain? You just laughed at me, and that's what your father told me. Maybe he felt sorry for me, and that's why he fired me. My father? Felt sorry? You got it all wrong, Ángeles. My father lied to you. I wasn't trying to trick you, and I wasn't trying to use you. It's a lie, it's just a stupid lie. Ángeles tried to close the door, but Javier wouldn't let her. You won't hide from me until you hear me out, he told the girl. Javier Delgado, I beg you, go away, please, go away, get on with your life, leave me alone. I don't want to see you anymore, it hurts me. Don't you understand that this is all because of you? Ángeles tried to close the door again, but Javier forcefully swung it open and entered the house. The girl tried to push him out, but he grabbed her in his arms and squeezed her tightly. Ángeles tried to break free, but she failed and cried. She cried and collapsed in his arms. What was it all for? For what? I've had enough trouble in my life, and now this, she tried to say through her sobs. Javier held Ángeles tight in his arms, rocking lightly from side to side like a baby, while the girl kept crying. After 5 minutes she calmed down, and they stood in silence. And then Ángeles whispered, "Why did you come?" Javier stroked her back affectionately. "Because I love you," he whispered back. Ángeles answered nothing. They were silent for a few more minutes, and then Javier closed the door. The girl stepped away from him and looked him in the eye. You're lying to me. You don't love me. You say that on purpose. You want something from me, but I can't give you anything. I have nothing. You want to sleep with me, is that what you want? No, Ángeles, I need you. I love you. I want you to be with me. My father didn't want us to be together. I told my sister everything, and my sister told my father, so my father sent me on a business trip so he could fire you while I was away. I don't know what he told you, but it wasn't true. I told him I loved you. I told him I wanted to be with you, and he said he wouldn't allow it. So I went away to find you and tell you everything. I need you. I don't want a life without you. Ángeles looked at Javier in shock. But how is it possible? It can't be me and you. I was afraid to love you from the beginning. It all went wrong. You captured my heart right away. I resisted as best I could, but to no avail, Ángeles said quietly. Javier embraced the girl again, and she pressed herself against his chest. They stood like that for a few minutes, and then a girl's voice sounded, Ángeles, who is that? Ángeles immediately pulled away from Javier. The man looked with surprise at the girl of about 11, who was standing next to them. Who are you? Javier asked the girl. My name is Dolores. This is my sister, Ángeles said. Where are your parents? Maybe you can introduce me to them? Javier asked. Ángeles shook her head. No, I won't. I don't know where they are. They left us. What happened? It's a long story. And I'm in no hurry to go anywhere. I found what I needed, Javier answered. Ángeles smiled slightly and wiped away her tears. Life was hard for Ángeles and her sister Dolores. 10 years ago there was an accident. A fire broke out in their house. The house was completely burnt down. Ángeles, Dolores, and their parents survived by a miracle. Their parents were not the best parents. Ángeles raised her sister alone, so to speak. Since Dolores was a baby, Ángeles took care of her. The parents drank a lot. By the time the fire happened, they were total alcoholics, and it was their fault that the tragedy happened. After the fire, an old woman, Lydia, a neighbor, sheltered the children and took care of them. The next morning, Ángeles discovered that their parents had disappeared. As the neighbor said, they saw this strange couple in the morning. They were walking hand in hand, staggering, toward the train station. No one else saw them. Ángeles realized that their parents had abandoned them. She was 13 years old at the time, and Dolores was only 2. Lydia did not kick the children out. She told them to call her grandmother and let them stay. So they lived with her for 10 years. Ángeles knew nothing more about her parents. Whether they were alive or dead, nothing was known. In fact, it didn't matter. Ángeles didn't need them, and Dolores didn't even remember them. That's our life, Ángeles said, looking at Javier. The girl thought that after her story Javier would just turn around and leave. She had been looking forward to it. But it didn't happen. Javier smiled, took the girl's hand, and said, You won't be alone anymore. Now I will be with you. Come with me to the city. Take your sister and let's go. Ángeles shook her head. No, I don't want to go to the city. I'm not going back there again. I'm afraid of your father. What if he finds out you're here? He'll kill me. I can't. I have a sister. I have to think about her. Then I will stay here with you, Javier said. Here? In the village? Ángeles asked in amazement. Yes, I will stay here. What's wrong with that? Do you think I can't? Ángeles squinted. You've got to be kidding. Country life and you are completely different things, incompatible. Javier frowned slightly. You're wrong. I'll prove to you that I can live in the countryside. Where is your grandmother, Senora Lydia? I would like to talk to her. Why would you want to talk to her? Ángeles asked frightenedly. I need to talk to her, that's it. That is all you need to know. Where is she? Just answer me. She's in the yard, behind the house. Javier, what are you going to do? I don't know what's going on. You've turned my whole life upside down. I can't believe you came here, telling me you love me. It's impossible. How could a man like you love someone like me? I've never met anyone like you, that's why I fell in love with you, Javier said and walked out of the house. Angela saw him walk past the window toward the courtyard. She could not believe what was happening. When Daniel Delgado told her that Javier just wanted to use her, it hurt. Yes, Daniel had fired her, but if he hadn't, Ángeles would quit anyway. She had fallen in love with Javier, but she was afraid to confess it, even to herself. She no longer hoped she would ever see him again. Everything that was happening now seemed unreal to her, like a dream, the most beautiful dream she had ever seen. About 10 minutes later, Ángeles saw Lydia and Javier walk past the windows. They came to the gate, and Lydia was showing Javier something with her hand. Javier listened to her attentively and nodded. What are they talking about? Ángeles whispered. The elderly Lydia and Javier discussed something for another 5 minutes, and then Javier held out his hand to the woman. She shook it with a smile. Javier opened the gate, got out, and got into the car. Ángeles sighed disappointedly. This was it. Now he would leave and she would never see him again. Lydia went inside and smiled at the girl. What a nice young man, he doesn't seem like the millionaire's son at all. What were you talking about? Ángeles asked. Lydia grinned. Don't worry, you'll see him soon. Maybe tomorrow or after tomorrow, but he will definitely come. I like him very much. He's very determined. I think he loves you, Ángeles. You've been suffering because of him lately, haven't you? Ángeles did not answer, but she blushed. Lydia nodded contentedly. Well, I'm not worried about you anymore. You'll be fine. Javier went back to the city to take care of a few issues. He wanted to withdraw money from his accounts, but he was disappointed. The account that had been opened by his father, and where most of the money was, had been blocked. It was his father's tricks. Javier could withdraw money from his personal account, but it was not enough to fulfill his plans. He calmed down and decided to talk to his father again. He wanted to let him know how serious his intentions were. He arrived home and found his father in his office with a glass of whiskey. When Daniel Delgado saw his son, he grinned. Are you back already? Quickly. Javier calmly replied, Father, let's talk. I don't want to fight. I don't want to cut off all communication with my family, with my relatives. But you must understand that I am serious. I'm serious, too. You can't imagine how serious I am, Daniel retorted. Dad, I love this girl and I'm going to be with her. I've made up my mind. You can't talk me out of it. I'm not going to talk you out of it, Daniel replied. Dad, I'm serious. Ángeles doesn't want to go back to the city. I want to buy a house in the country and start a new life. You have to understand me. Understand you? I have spent so much time and effort to make you rich and happy, and you want to give it all up. And I'm supposed to understand you? No, I don't understand you. Daniel Delgado shouted. I don't want to give it all up, but you leave me no choice. Dad, I want to build my life in a way that makes me happy. But you won't let me do that. You want me to live by your rules. But that's not how it works. It's not fair. I want to live my own life. This isn't a game, Javier answered. And then there was a sharp sound. Javier shuddered. Daniel threw his whiskey glass against the wall, shattering it into small pieces. If you think I'm going to support you, you are mistaken. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to let you be with that girl, and I'm not going to help you. I blocked your account, you're out of money, and you can't buy a house. You can't survive there. You grew up in a completely different environment. You're the heir to a fortune. My heir. Do you want to give it all up for the sake of this beggar? Fine, do whatever you want. I'll never accept that janitor into our family. It's not going to happen. If you leave everything and go to her, you are no longer my son." Javier's face turned petrified. He realized that his father would not support him. Well, that means he no longer has a father. "Okay, whatever you say, so I'm an orphan now." Javier turned around and walked toward the exit of the office. "You're going to regret this. You won't be able to survive there. You're a professional, a talented doctor. You need to work. You don't know how to do anything else but treat people. How will you live? What are you going to do for a living? How are you going to support this beggar? In a couple of months, you'll come crawling to me on your knees, apologizing. You'll see, that's how it will be." Javier stopped at the door, but he didn't even turn to his father. "It will never happen, you'll see." He opened the door and went out. Daniel Delgado covered his face with his hands and roared with helplessness. Javier got in his car, took his cell phone, and dialed his best friend's number. As soon as he answered the phone, Javier said, "Damien, I really need your help. I can only count on you, no one else can help me." 2 days later, Javier returned to Ángeles in the countryside. The girl saw his car stop on the side of the road. She got out of the house and ran to the gate. Javier walked up to her and said, "I bought a house 3 houses away from here. I want you to move in with me. Now I'm a villager, not a millionaire, and I need your help. I don't know what to do next, but I know that I need you. I feel like if we're together, we can make it work." "Bought a house? I can't move in, you and I are strangers. I love you and I want you to marry me." "Then we won't be strangers," Javier replied. "What about Lydia? I can't leave her. We've lived together for so many years, she's all alone." Javier shrugged his shoulders. "She won't be alone. We're just around the corner, we'll help her. Will you teach me? I only know how to treat people, I'm a dentist. I don't know what country life is like, and I really hope you can tell me all about it." Ángeles shook her head in shock. "You're just crazy." Javier smiled. "Maybe. But now I feel more alive and real than ever, as if I hadn't lived before. Maybe I'm just starting to live. It scares me, but I like it, and I think it's going to work out. Just stay with me, I can't handle it alone." Ángeles smiled but remained silent. Ángeles and Dolores moved in with Javier. Javier's friend loaned him the missing money and Javier was able to buy a house. The house was in good condition. Ángeles said the house had been for sale for a long time, but it was too expensive for the locals. A couple from up north had lived here before they bought the house and used it as a summer cottage, but then they didn't need it anymore and decided to sell it. Now Javier, Ángeles, and Dolores lived here. A month later, Ángeles and Javier got married. There was no fancy wedding. There was only a family celebration with only Javier, Ángeles, Dolores, and Lydia present. Javier was happy. His beloved was with him, she was teaching him rural life. First, they bought chickens, then pigs, and then they got a cow. Javier didn't know how to do anything, but he got to know his neighbors. Carla and Kuno were good neighbors. They were a little older than Javier and were very surprised that Javier had traded city life for country life. They were very helpful to Javier and Ángeles. Kuno told Javier what to do with the pigs, how to take care of the cow, and how to handle the chickens. Carla was telling Ángeles her women's secrets, how to make cucumbers grow faster, how to keep Colorado beetles from eating fresh potato sprouts, how to spray trees so that apples won't be wormy. Kuno, Carla, Ángeles, and Javier became very good friends and visited each other often. 6 months passed. Javier had already settled down in the countryside. They had a lot of livestock. They started selling milk and eggs and bred rabbits. Their neighbor Kuno would butcher them for a modest fee, and Javier and Ángeles would sell the meat. Carla taught Ángeles to sew. The girl was very good at it. Carla spread the word throughout the village that Ángeles was an excellent seamstress, and soon the girl began to receive orders. At first, she was worried that she wouldn't make it, but after a few weeks, she felt confident. After another month, Ángeles suddenly fainted. It's a good thing Javier was nearby, managing to pick his wife up as she fell. In a panic, Javier was ready to go to the city to the hospital, but Ángeles said with a smile, "Honey, I don't need any hospital." "What do you mean, you don't need?" "You fainted, you're sick, you need to go to the hospital, you need to be examined." Ángeles shook her head and smiled. "No, my love, I'm fine, I'm just pregnant." Javier was shocked. "Pregnant? Are you pregnant?" Ángeles nodded. Javier stared at his wife in shock for a couple of seconds, and then he picked her up in his arms and whirled her around the room. "We are going to have a baby. God, what a joy, we're having a baby. How long have you known? Why didn't you tell me?" Ángeles laughed. "Put me on the floor, I'm already dizzy, I'm about to vomit. A couple of days ago, I began to suspect this. I had symptoms, but I was doubtful. And now I'm sure it's not just symptoms, I'm definitely pregnant." Javier hugged his wife tightly and squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't regret changing his life more than 6 months ago. He was truly happy now. Daniel Delgado looked out the window. He watched the passing cars with a frown on his face. A year ago, his life had changed forever. His son left. He left everything, his career, his family, his home, everything, for some penniless janitor, and he never came back home, even though Daniel thought it would happen very quickly. Daniel thought about his son all the time. A few days ago, he couldn't take it anymore. He hired a man to find out how his son was living, and a couple of hours ago he received a full report. Daniel learned that his son had gotten married and that Ángeles was pregnant, and he would soon be a grandfather. He's about to become a grandfather and he can't even congratulate his son. So how could this happen in his family? His son met some country beggar and gave up his career for this girl without any doubts. What was so special about her that Daniel Delgado didn't see? Was his son right? Judging by the fact that they had been living together for more than a year, this girl was decent and modest, she didn't need our money. Daniel had been wrong and now realized his mistake. He listened to his daughter at the time. It was only now that he realized he shouldn't have done it, they had ruined everything. His son can cope with his life on his own. The door to the office opened and Ursula walked in. "Did you call me, Dad?" "Yes, dear, I did. I have something serious to talk to you about. I found out something now, and I want to tell you about it." Daniel told his daughter everything he had learned from the detective. Ursula didn't say a word. She looked at her father in silence. She turned more and more pale with each word. When her father stopped talking, he held out a folder to her. She opened it and looked at the pictures the detective had taken. Tears came to her eyes. She sighed and closed her eyes. "He's happy. It's unbelievable, but he is really happy," she said quietly. Father nodded. "Yes, he is happy. I didn't know it would be like this, Dad. I thought I was right, that I was doing the right thing. Do you understand that, Father?" "I know, my daughter," Daniel answered quietly. They were silent, and then he said, "We must admit that we were wrong. We must apologize to him." Ursula shook her head. No, I can't do that. I'll have to apologize to that girl. I can't stand it. You have to do it. Both of us are to blame for him leaving, to blame for him dropping everything. If we hadn't fired her and stayed out of his life, things would have been different. He probably would have married her and they would have stayed in the city. Now he lives there, in the country, and we don't communicate. I suffer a lot because of that. I miss him very much, Ursula whispered. Then you know what we have to do, Daniel answered. I don't know if I can, said Ursula. You have to. And I have to do it. Both of us, Daniel Delgado said slowly, continuing to look out the window. The next day they drove to the countryside. Ursula was very nervous, while her father sat quietly, not showing what was going on in his heart. When they arrived, they couldn't get out of the car for a long time. "Daughter, we have to do this," Daniel said. "What if they don't want to talk to us? What if they kick us out? We won't know until we try. If they don't want to talk to us, we'll accept their choice. Let's go. We have to end this once and for all." They got out of the car. Daniel's driver watched them curiously while sitting in the car. Father and daughter approached the gate. They hesitantly stopped, not knowing what to do next. Then they saw Ángeles. The girl had a large belly and would soon give birth. She was walking along the yard with a basket in her hands, smiling and muttering something to herself, stroking the large belly, and then she saw them. Ángeles stopped abruptly and looked at them fearfully. Daniel and Ursula looked silently at Javier's wife. Ángeles shook her head slightly. "Javier, come here," she shouted, not taking her eyes off the uninvited guests. A minute later, Javier came out of the house. "Are you okay? You screamed so loud. Is everything all right?" he asked excitedly, and then he saw his father and sister. He hurriedly walked over to his wife and took Ángeles by the hand. They stood looking at each other for about a minute, and then Javier sighed and let go of Ángeles' hand. He looked at his wife and whispered, "Stay here. I'll go to them and find out what they need. Just don't worry, it's okay. Javier, everything will be all right. I don't depend on anybody. They won't do anything to us anymore. No one will hurt you, my love, I promise. Stay here." Ángeles nodded, and Javier walked to the gate. "Hello, Javier, we wanted to talk to you and your wife, if you let us," Daniel said quietly. Ursula looked at her brother in amazement. He looked so strange, and the expression on his face was very unusual. After a moment, Ursula realized that she would like to look like that herself, happy, satisfied with life and destiny. Javier looked that way. She wanted that, too, but she still couldn't find her place in life. Javier was quiet, and then he said, "You made it clear to me that I am no longer your son. Aren't you satisfied that I don't bother you anymore? Why did you come? Do you want to hurt Ángeles? She's my wife now, and I won't let you talk to her. We have our own life and you have yours. I don't think we should cross paths. It won't do any good. Please don't disturb my wife. She and the baby need to be at peace. The countryside does not provide the same medical care as the city. If she gets nervous, she might go into premature labor. The paramedic warned us that we must avoid unnecessary stress. I think you'd better go. I won't let you bully me and my wife. Son, please listen to us. We've come to talk and apologize to you," Daniel said. "Apologize?" Javier asked incredulously. He looked at his sister, who stood silent and looked at her brother guiltily. She nodded, looking Javier in the eye. "Forgive me, Javier, I was stupid and arrogant. I didn't know it would work out that way. I thought I was protecting you, that it would be better this way." Javier shook his head in reproach. "How could you think it would be better for me when you can't even handle your own life? You don't even know what you want, but you think you have the right to decide how I should live my life. Ursula, it's time for you to grow up and take responsibility for your actions." "I'm ready to take responsibility for my actions now," Ursula said. "Do we have company? I should put 2 extra plates on the table, right? Would you like to dine with us?" Javier heard his wife's voice behind him. The girl heard the whole conversation and came closer. Ursula swallowed before she spoke. "I'm sorry, Ángeles, I want to apologize for everything I've done, everything I've said about you. I'm really sorry for the way things turned out." "I'm not sorry. It's probably for the best. Maybe things would be different if I'd stayed in the city and worked as a janitor, and maybe I wouldn't have been so happy, but now everything is wonderful," Ángeles answered. They were silent, and then Ángeles said, "Well, don't just stand there, come inside." Daniel let the driver go and said he would call when it was time to pick them up. An hour later, when Angeles and Javier had fed their guests, the father began the conversation. Javier and Angeles, we apologize, we were wrong, and we are truly sorry that we hurt you. Javier, I miss you very much. I realized that I was a fool. I always wanted my children to be happy, but I didn't realize that you could take care of your own happiness. And I'm glad you didn't listen to me. I see that you have become a real man. I'm proud of you, and I really want us to become a real family. Angeles is now part of our family too, and you will have a child, my grandson, and I am incredibly happy about that. I really want us to communicate as very close and dear people from now on. Please move into the city. Javier, you have to work again. You're such a talented doctor, it's a real crime for you to quit your job. I won't interfere in your life anymore. You have a family that will soon be bigger. I want us to never fight or quarrel again. I want us to be there for each other, always. Javier looked at his father in amazement. He had never seen him like this before. So sincere. Javier looked at Angeles. She sat silently, thinking, and stroked her big belly. What do you think of that? He turned to his wife. Angeles looked at him confused. This is your family. I never had a real family, my parents abandoned us. They probably never loved me and Lola, since they didn't need us. Who is Lola? Ursula asked. Angeles looked at her. That's my sister. She is now visiting her grandmother, our non-biological grandmother, who sheltered and raised us. Ursula blushed. Then Angeles continued, I look at you and I realize that I would give anything to have a family like that. And I want to believe that we can be a real family, well, if that's what you want. I hope you do want it. I'm not mad at you, and I think we should forget all the bad things that happened between us. That would be the right thing to do. I want to keep in touch with you. I want our child to have a real grandfather. I just don't want to move to the city yet. We are very happy here. We can stay here and maybe move to the city because of the baby, but not right now. My soul demands to stay here. If you want, you can come and visit us anytime. You are always welcome. I would very much like to have a grown-up sister, Ursula. I think you are a good girl. We all make mistakes, but that doesn't mean we're bad people. The most important thing is that we admit them, then we can look each other in the eye with a clear conscience. Daniel looked at Angeles. He saw the love his son had for his wife and realized that his son had made the right choice. Will you at least come to visit us? Daniel asked his son and his wife. Javier took Angeles by the hand and smiled. Of course, Dad, we would be happy to come and visit you. Half an hour later, they saw their guests off. Daniel hugged his son tightly several times and then hugged Angeles, whispering in her ear, You are a wonderful and wise girl. I am incredibly happy that you have become my son's wife. I couldn't have picked a better match for him. Thank you. When Daniel and Ursula got into the car, they breathed a sigh of relief. Everything went well, though, didn't it? Daniel asked, taking his daughter's hand. Everything went perfectly, Dad, just fine, Ursula smiled. Angeles and Javier stood at the gate for a long time. Javier hugged his wife, and Angeles smiled. What do you think will happen next? He asked. Angeles sighed. I don't know what will happen next, but I'm sure of one thing, everything will be fine. Right, honey? Javier kissed her and answered, Yes, my love, we're going to be fine. Daniel Delgado and Ursula often came to the village. Ursula and Angeles became friends. Javier's sister often stayed at their house overnight. When Javier and Angeles had a son, Ursula even moved in with them temporarily to help with the baby. She did this sincerely and with pleasure. Walking around the yard with the stroller, Ursula realized that she had never been happier. The old life and silly worries seemed so far away, as if they had never happened to her. Ursula realized that there was no one closer than family. Now she dreamed of just being happy, of finding a man who would love her the way Javier loved his beloved Angeles. Now it was her most cherished dream. Ursula knew that her father would support her, even if she wanted to change her life the way Javier had changed it. Everything would be very different for them now.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.